Welcome to the event, to the School Searcher event. I think it's going to be a fantastic day. We've got an amazing lineup of schools here and a great response to the event. So thank you, Catherine, for organising all of this. So our first topic today is what to look for and to ask when choosing a secondary school in the UAE. Let me introduce the panel first of all. We have Benjamin Atkins, Head of Secondary at the Aquila School. We have Rob Hitchens, who is the Vice Principal and Head of Secondary at Dubai Heights Academy. We have Tim Roberts, the School Principal of Raffles World Academy. And we have Jen Cruikshank, who's the Deputy Head Teacher of Secondary at Dubai British School, Jumeirah Park. So a wealth of experience and talent here on this first panel this morning. My name is Fiona Mackenzie and I am Head of Education at Carfax Education, and I work with families across the world helping them to find the best educational solutions for their children. So therefore I'm very in tune with the educational landscape here, and I'm delighted to have such a great panel to start the day. So I think for any parent making this decision, there's always a degree of uncertainty when you make such a crucial decision, but information, I think, is the kind of cure for this, and that's what we're aiming to give you today. There are so many questions that families need to ask when they're making possibly one of the most important decisions in their child's life. Which secondary school is going to be the best fit for my child? So Jen, can we start with you? What would you say is the key thing, the first sort of question you think parents should be asking?
So the first thing that I would think about is, what is it that you are looking for when you go around the school? Are you looking for somewhere that is going to support your child academically? Are they into sports, and therefore are they going to need some support around what to do on the sports field? So go and have a look at the PE team and the facilities there. Are they going to need potentially some support pastorally? So the questions that I would ask around, what is the wraparound care that you have within the school? Where does my child go, for example, if they have an issue in the school day? Who should they look for? Where can they find them? And I would look to see who's happy around the school as well. When you're having your school tour, I think it's really important, and a very clear indicator of the school is, are people smiling, are people saying hello? So definitely have a think before you go. What is it that your child wants? What is it that you want as a family? So you've got those questions ready before you go.
Thank you. I think one of the key things that certainly comes up a lot with me is the kind of the curriculum, the teaching and learning. Rob, what are the sort of questions you think parents should be asking around that? Because not everybody really understands what the different curriculums mean or what teaching and learning is.
Yes, I mean, in Dubai we've got over 200 schools, 220 schools, private schools with a variety of curriculums. So we've got over 200 nationalities of people coming here, so people are looking for various different curriculums. So looking for something that's going to future-proof their children, because a lot of the parents are transient and will be moving on to other countries. So it's looking for that continuity of the curriculum that when they move to another country, that they can take with them.
Absolutely. And what would you kind of add to that in terms of what sort of questions do you think parents should be asking around that, the teaching and learning aspect of its school?
Yeah, to take a slightly different tack, I think the most important thing when you visit a school is you should meet a member of the academic team who's going to talk you through the vision of what their school aims to offer, what curriculum they offer. If you go to visit a school and you just meet a member of the administration team, you're probably not going to get the information you require from that school. So on your school tour, you must make sure that you speak to preferably one of the senior leaders, so that you can have an open and frank discussion about what your needs and wants are, and then you can establish if that school is going to be the right school for your child.
What about, Benjamin, what do you find when you've got parents coming around? Are they asking that kind of key question, that searching question of you?
Yes, but I think what Tim said, more so just speaking to a member of the academic team, is to speak to the children. As Jen said, looking around and seeing if it's a happy place. The children are the best salespeople for their own school, and actually not children who've been wheeled out in front of you, here speak to this child, but when you're walking around the corridors and you're going into the classrooms and you actually have that opportunity as they pass by, what's the best thing about this school? What do you enjoy about this school? You know, why do you like coming here? They'll give you the honest answers that you won't find in the brochures on the websites, and when the children sell their own school, you know that actually it must be a decent school because they're happy there, and being happy at school is the most important thing. We all have different curriculums, we all have teachers from different countries, we have different pedagogical styles, but as long as we've got safe, happy children, that's when the learning starts to happen.
Absolutely, I think you're right. The children are absolutely the best ambassadors. Some of the best school tours I've ever done around schools have been with children. They have to be the right children. Sometimes if you have a child who's not kind of super enthusiastic, it can go horribly wrong. But I do think you're right. The kind of the best ambassadors are indeed your children. But we've talked about how it sort of feels to go around a school, what to kind of look for, smiling faces and things like that. I always think looking at what's on the walls as well is also a really kind of key indicator. But one of the questions I get asked a lot is about staffing. I think there's a bit of a sort of, maybe misconception out there that there's quite a change in staffing, and how, Fiona, do we know that the staff are going to stay? Jen, what sort of questions should parents be asking around that?
So I would be asking about the staff turnover. Each school will have percentages of staff turnovers, and so I would ask for what that percentage is. I would then also talk about the retention rate as well, so how long do your staff stay with you typically, and where those staff are from as well. So are they trained in the UK, for example, because that's important to some parents. But yeah, definitely the retention rate is something that I would be asking for. And again, looking around, can you see that staff are happy within the school as well when you're on those tours as well? And I would very definitely try to get into classrooms as well. If the tour is just taking you around the corridors, I would maybe ask as a parent to be able to go into some lessons as well, so you can actually witness firsthand the teaching within the classrooms too, and see that teacher or those teachers in action.
Tim, well, you said it's very important to speak to a member of the kind of academic team. What other questions do you think parents should be sort of quizzing you on in terms of the staffing?
Yeah, I think with the staffing, you need to see that they've got the depth of experience and they're trying to deploy the right staff in the right areas of the curriculum to help and develop your child. But I think in line with the staffing, I think coming back to what they were saying before about teenagers, I think someone alluded to, at some point in a teenage education, something is going to go wrong. If you think your child is going to sail through 6 or 7 years of secondary school without an issue coming along, that's not going to happen. So if you accept that to be a fact, what that naturally leads to is that you need a way to communicate with the school. You need a school that will communicate with you and endeavour to solve problems even before they happen. Whereas if you're sitting at home and your teenager doesn't want to go to school and there's something occurring and they're not happy, they're not going to learn. Whereas if you can quickly contact the school and speak to the right member of staff who's got the requisite experience to help you, most problems, most times, can be solved. If you don't tell anybody what's going on, no problems will be solved. So the communication is absolutely critical.
You're absolutely right, communicating that triangle, isn't it, between school, pupil and parents. Rob, obviously it's a seismic change. You just talked to him about kind of the fact that this is the teenagers, you're heading into a completely different zone when you're moving from that kind of primary level up to secondary level. And this means a lot more kind of subject specialisation and things. What are the sorts of questions parents should be asking around the kind of curriculum and the subject choices?
I think the school needs to make sure it's offering a broad and balanced range of subjects that the students can take, to ensure that they get the qualifications they want for their later life. So it's all about talking to the students about their choices, about their career choices, what they wanted to do, to make sure they're choosing the right subjects. But as a school, we need to make sure that we're offering that broad balance, not spreading ourselves too thin, and making sure we've got quality rather than quantity in our range of curriculum subjects.
That should definitely be, I think, a question, shouldn't it, on every parent's list, because this is the kind of quite decisive academic phase.
Yeah, definitely. And some students are more academic, so we should be looking at whether they're vocational qualifications, academic qualifications, and along those lines.
Yeah, I think very important to understand the difference. We've got a panel on that later on, looking at the different curriculums, so strongly advise you to attend that as well if you can. Benjamin, what about you in terms of the kind of academic input? What questions do you think you should be, or what answers would you want to give parents, and what questions would you like them to ask?
So not only what subjects are available and what pathways will take them through to, whether it's university or later life, we've talked about looking at the teachers and asking what the subject background is or where they trained. But what's key, as Tim said, about children facing difficulties, what does that pastoral support team look like? Does the school have a counsellor? Are the heads of year in place? What's the form tutor or that first homeroom type person? What communication do you have with them? It's the whole team around the child that matters. And if we are looking at universities and we are looking at employment, how is that careers supported and those options for university developed in the curriculum? What platforms are available to help support that and to take them on to life after school? It's about preparing them for what comes next whilst they're with you.
That's so true, and I think when you're looking at sort of year 7, it's quite hard to remember that actually by the time the children have finished their experience with you, they're going to be these big grown-up people. So yes, they do need to be asking those questions right at the beginning, don't they? So I think, Jen, one of the other things that I kind of think parents often need to know, when you're at a sort of primary school, you can be very involved and engaged as a parent. It's quite a big sort of role for parents at that level. I think that changes a little bit at secondary. So what sort of questions do you think they should be asking around parental involvement in the school?
Yeah, and I think for the majority of schools within the UAE, something that's quite different from the UK as well is that you have the primary phases of the school within the school site as well. So that's something that's potentially a little bit different if you are coming from the United Kingdom over to Dubai. I would like to, as a parent, be speaking about how many official touch points are there within the year, but as you quite rightly said as well, that open line of communication that yes, we have our parent-teacher conferences and these happen these many times within the year, for example, but actually you can reach out at any time as well, and quite rightly as well, who is my point of contact at that time as well. So is it the child's head of year? Is it more appropriate to go to the form tutor, for example, or to their subject teachers? So I would be looking for and asking for maybe an email list, maybe with some pictures as well, to see who it is that I'm emailing, to maybe remove that barrier as well when you are speaking to parents or when you are needing to reach out to the school. So do they have that already, or is that something that they can provide as well?
I mean, what about you? I mean, with again, that sort of transition through, what sort of engagement or what expectations do you have of parents getting involved in parent-teacher associations and that sort of thing?
So looking for an active parent community means that there's quite a lot of support within the school. If the parents are happy to be involved or have the time to be able to be involved, then we find that the children will want to be there as well. So what are the extra parts of the school that are offered? Is there souks, fairs, movie nights? What is that environment that brings the community together? Because when there is a strong parent community and people know each other, the children get to know each other, and it's about building relationships. Schools are built on relationships, and it goes from pupil to pupil, teacher to pupil, but parents to parents as well. Because when there are issues, and they do happen, being able to meet with those parents, talk to them, it's talk to each other because one child said something to another child. It's having that understanding that actually they're able to resolve things because the community does work together for the best interests of the children.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you talked about children being ambassadors, but actually parents are also equally a great ambassador for you when you have that great community. Is there anything else that you would add to that in terms of parental involvement in the school community?
I think it's very important to have that strong parent community kind of environment within a school, because your parents are your best advocates for word of mouth, for referring the school, for bringing in their friends and their friends' children. So a very strong parent community is important. It's having those open communications so that parents know that they can come in and talk to you whenever they need to.
So really important that I think parents ask about that, isn't it? So they sort of understand.
Definitely, and I think the school should be proactive in pushing those things out there first. So the parents shouldn't really have to ask those questions. But we're showing that we have that open communication.
Yes, I guess that's a very good point actually, isn't it? In a way, the questions that we're suggesting parents should be asking, actually schools should almost be proactively preempting some of those questions before it even gets to that point. We talked a little bit about ECAs at the beginning, Jen. I think you mentioned it when you talked about the kind of the broad sort of areas. Tim, what would you say, as principal, obviously the education part, the kind of academic part is very important, but the ECAs are a key part of the child's experience.
Yeah, I mean, most of the schools are offered ECAs or CCAs or ASAs. They've got various acronyms that all mean the same. It means your child's going to stay beyond the school day doing something over and above it, maybe a sporting event, maybe an academic event, it may be a creative event like the Lego League or something like that. When you're looking at the schools, you need to be careful though to be clear, because most schools offer a mixed range of CCAs. They will offer CCAs provided by the school, which is usually a member of the teaching staff, and very often they're free for the child. You enrol and it's limited capacity, but they're free. Many of the schools in Dubai and other Emirates also offer what they call paid CCAs, which is where an external provider comes in. So for example, it might be a gymnastics club. And for that CCA, you'll have to pay over and above the school fees. So you do need to be cautious about that. I think whilst we're talking about ECAs and the greater development of the child, it's interesting that up to now, when we're talking about choosing a school for your child, no one's actually discussed what the child wants. And I think as part of that process, it's a teenager. The teenager is able to make these decisions. So I would suggest very strongly that you take your teenager along with you to the school and let them have a look at the school. Let them feel whether they are going to be happy enough being there for 8 or 9 hours a day for 180 days a year for the next 7 years. That's a lot of days. And to do that, you've got to develop a huge sense of trust between you and the school. If you don't trust the school, and even worse, if the school doesn't trust you to some extent, your child is not going to do terribly well at that school. So if you go there and you don't actually feel that your child is more or less, even though they're a teenager, going to want to go there most days, most times, the rest is irrelevant. And if you just think of that at your own place of work, if you don't want to go to your job every day, you're not going to do very well at your job. And I know we're talking about children, it's not jobs, but the principle is broadly similar. If most days, most times they get up and they're happy and excited to go to school, they're going to be fine.
But it is a sort of gamble, isn't it? Because you can go around schools and so much of it I feel is a gut instinct as to whether you feel your child will kind of fit in, isn't it? And taking the child is a key part of it.
I think you're absolutely right, and that's why I said it's important that you meet a member of the academic team so that you can get an idea of the vision of the school and whether that school is right for you. Because, to be honest, most schools, what they do, I think at least 90% of it is the same. There's a whole load of schools in this room, but 90% of what they do is the same. You should be looking for that difference that's going to make the difference to your child. That's the key. So when you look at that little bit of difference, because the rest is going to be broadly similar. They're all similar. They've all got swimming pools, they've all got classrooms, most of them got theatres, they've all got clubs, they've all got teachers, they've all got blackboards. So you should be looking for the difference. That's the key.
And I think that's really what we're trying to help you do today. So sort of what are the questions you should be asking to find out what that difference is and why that's going to be the right school for your child. Just looking back to the ECAs, again, Jen, you raised it at the beginning. Why do you think that's an important part of what parents should be exploring?
Well, students will spend their day within the lessons, and I think that the ECA programmes really give an opportunity for students to either be creative or continue into a leadership position, or by either leading an ECA themselves or having a club that maybe enables them to acquire the leadership skills that they will need in a leadership position. But a good ECA programme will have a number of different things, and it's quite similar to the curriculum that they offer as well. It needs to be broad and it needs to be balanced as well. Different schools will have ECA timings at different parts of the day. For example, our secondary have them in the morning, some of them happen in the afternoon. So again, it depends on you as a parent and potentially where you need additional childcare. But yeah, I think thinking about, again, what your child would want from that. So is there a chess club, for example? Is there a swimming club? Do they want to be competitive, or do they potentially want to just do sport for fun, for example? And I think if an ECA programme encompasses all of those different things, then there very much is something for everybody within that.
Yeah, so it's almost an opportunity to kind of curate your curriculum beyond the kind of core academic subjects and develop your specialisms and specialities. Benjamin, what would you add?
I would say what we're preparing children for is the life after school. And everybody will leave school with the black and white on their CV, name, address, exam results. They're all going to get that, regardless of which school they go to. The ECAs are a key part to adding the colour to that CV, so when they go to those university admissions interviews, they're able to sit there and say, this is me, this is who I am, and this is why I should be on this university course. So they offer a broad range of ECAs that link into supporting the leadership opportunities, the sporting developments, everything that actually will make them stand out and be different from the other 1,000 applicants that course of 10 doctors or engineers has got available. What makes your child stand out? And it's the ECAs which is going to put that polish on and make them the person who gets through that interview. Which links into ECAs on public speaking. Can they present themselves at interview? Can they stand up? Can they speak out? So you're looking for a range of skills which, over the 7 years that you go through secondary, will fine-tune each of the elements needed for life after.
Yeah, so really important to kind of quiz schools on the opportunities that are kind of available for that. I think one of the other questions that I get asked a lot, and Rob, I think this is really helpful for you to chip in, is the kind of the educational support for children who need a little bit more support perhaps in the curriculum. What sort of questions should parents be asking around that?
Well, first of all, parents need to make sure they are being honest with the school and letting the school know what the needs of the students are, because sometimes that doesn't happen and that causes issues further down the road. So it's then finding out what type of support the school can offer. Is it academic? Is it pastoral support? What type of academic support they need? Explaining who the pastoral team are, explaining who the inclusion team are, the wellbeing team, to make sure that the parents have got a full understanding of what additional support the school can offer.
So transparency is key, I think, in order
transparency on both sides.
Absolutely. Benjamin, what would you add to that?
we wanted to make sure that, that all children are included, and that whether we're stretching the top end, we're supporting the children who might need additional support, or even if we're addressing language needs. So there's a whole range of support that children need. Some need it now, some won't know they need it for a couple of years. But what is included in the cost of the fees? What do you get? What can the school offer as its standard provision? What do you have to pay for extra? And knowing what that balance is and how that's assessed and judged, and the communication that the team will have with you as a parent to guide you on what's best for your child. Everybody wants what's best for the child, and ultimately it's making sure we get the right intervention at the right time. Can the school provide it? Can they provide it in the fees, or is it something extra?
I think that's a really key point, isn't it? Because that can come as a bit of a surprise to people later down the line. So yes, Jen, have you got something you'd like to know?
Yeah, particularly if your child needs an individual learning assistant as well. Quite often they can be above and beyond the school cost that you are paying with your fees as well. So yeah, that transparency I think is really, really key, particularly if your child has had support in the past. They may not need it for all of their schooling, but very definitely that transparency in order to make sure that the child gets the support that they need, because if they're not supported, they potentially may not be happy, and therefore they're not going to do as well as they could do if that support is put in place.
I think it's so true, and it is one of the things I sometimes find parents are quite reluctant to disclose things because they're worried it might jeopardise their child finding a place. But transparency really is key, because it has to be the right choice for everybody involved in the kind of the mix. Now, EAL, English as an additional language, is obviously a really kind of big thing at the moment. Tim, what sort of questions should parents be asking around that? Because that is a big point to this transition.
Yeah, I mean, you should establish if EAL support is available first and foremost. I would imagine some schools have a richer provision than others, and that will largely depend upon the demographic of the children within. Schools will also have different models of EAL support. Some will adopt what you might rather harshly call the sink or swim approach, which is where they put the children into the classroom and hope they gather English by osmosis. Other schools may have pull in and push out sessions where specialists may come in and support and or take small groups of children, potentially of differing ages, to enable EAL to happen. Other schools may have an intensive course for a period of time, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and then slowly integrate the children into the curriculum. So do be cautious about whether there is EAL support on offer, what the support is, and how that will look like in practice when your child is going to the school every day.
Yeah, really important to understand that model. Jen, what would you add to that?
A child that is coming from a country where English isn't the first language, or you don't speak first language at home, is that they will learn when they come to the school, and children on average make rapid progress in terms of their levels of English when they come into an English speaking environment. But again, they will need support, and whether that is a pull-in or push-in support, whether that is having somebody in the classroom, whether that is the differentiation and quality first teaching within that classroom as well. So yeah, lots of different levels of support, the same with inclusion as well, from an SEND point of view, from a special educational needs point of view as well.
So really important to ask these questions, and information is all when it comes to making these choices. Now, there are lots of different ways of kind of visiting schools, and I'm sure you all have slightly kind of different models. Obviously, today is an ideal opportunity for parents to speak directly to teams and to ask some of the questions that we've been raising. But Jen, open day or kind of one-to-one visit?
Well, I think we use a hybrid, definitely at Jumeirah Park. Somebody mentioned before about that feeling when you go into the school, and you can have the conversations here, but I would very definitely say if you can get into the school to really feel that feeling when you walk around the corridors, to meet with the academic teams, to meet with the admissions teams, and then I would wholeheartedly say please go for it, because yeah, that feeling that you get from around the school, we talked about touching and feeling our gut feeling earlier, and you will very definitely feel that when you step inside a building and you see the displays on the walls and you see those students in lessons. So yeah, that feeling, trust it, because it's normally right, I would say as well.
Yeah, Jim, open day, one-to-one visit?
I think most certainly one-to-one visits are more productive. If you think of it at its base term, every child is different. So discussion with every parent is going to be slightly different. If I was attempting to sell all of you a car right now, you all want slightly different cars, don't you? So I can't sell you the same one. So I'm better off speaking to you individually and ascertaining what your child needs at that point in time, and how we can work together to enable your child to develop and grow.
So, and do you kind of get to meet most of the parents who are coming around?
I meet every single parent when they join the school. I drag them up to my office. I usually talk to them for about 30 or 40 minutes. So we can start to build that relationship and develop that trust almost immediately. And then we go and do a tour of the school in context. I repeat, when you walk around most schools, you all went to school and you can remember what your school looked like. The schools here will look broadly the same, maybe a bit bigger, maybe a bit shinier. That's not important. It's important about this feeling you get when you walk around the school. But the only way you'll really fine-tune that gut instinct is to walk around the school in context. I think that's why the prior conversation is incredibly important. So you're not just looking around looking at classrooms and kids, you're looking at it with already an idea in the mind of whether your child is going to want to go there each and every day for the next few years.
Thank you. I mean, I think the one-to-one visit is definitely kind of the icing on the cake, isn't it? If you can meet the head. But I think there are values in open days, aren't there? In the sense you get the broad picture.
There are, and it's a buyer's market. Look at the number of schools here today. If parents want to visit a school at any time, the school will accommodate them, whether it's the weekend, an evening, or during the school day. You can't beat meeting children, and if a school's going to run a special open day, it's likely that they're going to have children there, children who are ambassadors, who are student leaders, to show you what they would be doing. We know that everybody can't make it in the school day to get a feeling of what the school life is like. So book in on one of the open evenings or one of the open days when it might be more convenient, and actually there will still be children there, highly likely. You'll still be able to speak to people and actually go in your own time where you're not rushed. What is important is it's a big decision. Moving children is not the best thing to do between schools every year. So if you go somewhere, you want to be putting them there for quite a while. Spend the time talking to the staff, looking at the school, looking if it is the right place. And if that means going at a weekend or an evening to an open day, open evening, do that if you can commit and actually focus on what it is that you're looking for.
I often think also with the open kind of events, you get to sort of see who else is looking, and you know it's very important. You're joining a community, and you want to know who else is going to be a part of that community as well. But what happens though if people can't get to visit schools? I have lots of families applying, internationally who can't actually visit the schools. What advice would you give them?
Well, if the parents can't make it to school, we offer a video tour, and we've got an online one that parents can see on our website at any time. But we often kind of take them on a video tour, have a Zoom link with them, and talk them through the tour as they're going on the website looking through the school.
So the next best thing to kind of a live tour that's done remotely. Fantastic. Well, thank you all so much. You've been really insightful and really informative, and I hope that the kind of parents in the audience have found that helpful. I'd like to open it up for Q&A now, if any parents have got any questions for our panel whilst we have this wealth of experience in front of us. Has anybody got anything they would like to ask? I think we probably covered it, sounds like, guys. Well done. Well, everybody will be on their stands, so please do feel free to go and introduce yourselves. And, well, I think you all have a schedule as well, but I'm sure people will be very happy to chat to you kind of in between times. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you very much, Jim, Benjamin, Rob, and Tim.